I'm Steph Garcia Psychos for D1 Ticker, and I am so delighted to be joined by University of New Hampshire President Jim Dean to talk about his open athletic director spot for the Wildcats. President Dean, thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm happy to be here, Steph. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Well, outgoing athletic director Marty Scarano led the Wildcats for 22 years. What are some key foundations that he built for the department, and what are some areas of opportunities and growth?
Well, I think most foundationally in terms of what Marty's contributed, I think it's really pride in UNH and pride in athletics and commitment to integrity in athletics. And those are things that I really never take for granted. And those are really the most foundational. I think he's also hired some great coaches that have really had a lot of success. From the standpoint of facilities, he helped us to build this football stadium and the scoreboard in the stadium. As an academic myself, I'll say I'm really proud of the fact that our student athletes do very well academically, that they get grades that are as good or sometimes even better than the student body as a whole. So really a lot to be proud of and a lot to build on. What are the opportunities? We're always under financial pressure, so finding a way to do better financially is important. Also, there's some variation in our athletic success. Some teams are certainly stronger than others, and I'd love to see them all come up to the standard of the best. And, we're also in a new era around diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether you're talking about women's versus men's sports or the number of African-American student athletes that we have, that they really feel included and feel empowered to be on their teams. So, and that's not to say that Marty hasn't done some great things there as well, but there's just a new standard and there's more to be done.
How does athletics fit into your larger vision for the university? And I'm thinking about your goal of having New Hampshire be among the nation's top 25 public universities in terms of academic performance and being a leading research institution.
Well, the first thing I'll say is you've really done your homework. So congratulations on that. I was intrigued to see that question. And seriously, congratulations on thinking through that. I think for a major public university like UNH, people expect there to be a sports program, and they expect it to be a high quality sports program. So it's more of a question of what do I want to say, consistency with the mission as much as it is with the strategy. As you know from your own background and the work that you do, athletics is a way that we attract alumni, students, community members, and so on. And so it's important to us from the standpoint of just reputation and so on. And so I think, also from an academic standpoint, we have academic excellence as one of our strategic priorities. So we can't have student athletes who are student athletes in name only. They really do need to be students as well as athletes. And I'm really proud of the fact that that's the case.
Well, President Dean, your background includes expertise in organizational behavior. I'm so intrigued by that. We could have a whole conversation about that. But can you share some insight into how UNH as an organization is shaped and how you try to structure your senior leadership team, which this AD will be part of?
Sure. So first of all, I'm going to shamelessly plug my book. So I wrote a book a couple of years ago, along with my colleague, Debbie Clark, called An Insider's Guide to Working with Universities. And I really tried to answer the exact question that you posed, which is, what is a university like as an organization, and how is it similar to or different from other kinds of organizations, particularly businesses? We get lots of people who come to work for universities or around universities, such as on boards, who come from business, and they don't particularly understand how universities work. Since I was a business school dean and a business school faculty and I've spent a lot of my career around businesses, I'm kind of like bilingual. So I wrote the book to try and do the translation between universities and other businesses. In terms of senior leaders, what I really look for, and I used to teach leadership quite a bit in executive education settings, and I would always start the class talking about the same three things, and nothing has really changed my opinion about the importance of these things. The first is integrity. In the absence of integrity, I think it's very hard to lead effectively. People don't respect you, they don't believe what you say, and so on. And integrity is really hard to maintain and really easy to lose, unfortunately, with a few bad moves. The second one is aspiration, by which I mean really high standards. You want people who really want to be the best. In the athletics context, you want people who want to win, and they want to win consistently, and they want to win the right way. And then the third one is maybe the most surprising, which is learning. that in order to be effective as a leader, you just have to keep learning. You have to be intellectually curious. You have to wonder how people are being successful and analyze their success and wonder what you're doing wrong and be inspired by other people. So I try to find people who demonstrate integrity, who have a great deal of aspiration, and who really want to continue to learn more. And I try to apply those standards beyond the obvious skills and experiences of their own roles to everybody that we hire at UNH.
Well, a buzzword in college athletics right now is alignment. It is a key feature for successful athletic departments. How involved do you intend to be with the long-term planning and the near-term goals set by your new athletic director?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting question. And I think that it's not really different for me between the athletic director and the other senior leaders who I lead at the university, the head of academics, the head of development, the head of marketing, and so on. What I try to do is to work with the community to establish a direction. Where are we going as a university? What are we going to try and accomplish in the near term? What are we going to try and accomplish over the next few years? And get people to buy into that vision. And then once they do, I give people a fair amount of discretion about how they go after it. We have yearly meetings in which people set goals and yearly meetings in which I review them against those goals. We have regular conversations about how it's going and so on. But I'm really not much of a micromanager. So if we hire the right person as an athletic director and he or she buys into the goals of the university and the direction, then I think I try to give people a lot of discretion. You hire senior professionals for a reason. One of our many jokes among my leadership team is the joke about the long screwdriver. And what you don't want is the boss with the long screwdriver extending it 3 or 4 levels down in the organization, trying to say how things should be done. You're not going to see me calling any plays in football.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we should get you out there on the field. Who knows? You might have a hidden talent. What are some top priorities for this incoming athletic director within their first 100 days? Again, that is kind of a key time frame for new senior leaders in athletics.
Sure. Well, to comment on your last comment, the first thing I'll say is I was a varsity athlete in soccer. So if I've got any hidden ability to intercede, it's going to be in soccer. Fortunately for us, we have a tremendous soccer coach in Mark Hubbard, and he doesn't need any help from me or from anybody. Within the first 100 days, I think what we need is there's a lot of people to meet. I mean, athletics is just at the intersection of, alumni and people on campus and students and conferences and so on. And we're in, I think it's 4 conferences. So there's just lots of other ADs to meet. So meet people, go over all of the performance records from athletics to academics to financial and sort of get a sense of where we are now and begin to develop a plan for how to move the department forward. If our new athletic director can meet the right people and develop a plan in the first 100 days, then we're good.
Well, ideally, let's talk candidate profile a little bit. Would this be someone who is currently a sitting AD, or are you open to giving, an up and coming senior leader their first chance at the big chair?
Yeah, both. I tend to be pretty agnostic about exactly what the background is. I think, you try to find people who have had the right kind of experiences, people who have the right kind of skills, and also people that have potential. I think you're right. I think the 2 most obvious are people who have been in AD and people who are sort of 1 level below. And it could be either. I've hired a lot of deans when I was provost. When I was provost and dean, I hired a lot of professors, and it's sort of the same thing. It's not as different as people would think it is.
Are you open to some non-traditional candidates? I'm thinking about, again, senior leaders, yes, but maybe who are in the MMR space or who are, associated with college athletics, but not directly in an athletic department at the moment.
So is MMR, what's MMR?
Multimedia rights. So like
wow.
a Learfield or Playfly,
okay.
those companies that help you buy media rights and also and do sales.
So for a second, I thought it was mixed martial arts, and I was thinking that would be an odd background to come from, but it was R, not A.
They'd have a lot of discipline.
Possibly. I think so. I mean, You're probably too young to remember the game Trivial Pursuits. You've
I
probably
know
heard of
that
it.
game.
You do? Okay.
People still play it today.
So do you remember that you had this little circle that looked like a pizza pie and you had to fill in the little triangle wedges just like pieces of pizza? See, I told you you don't remember it. Anyway, that's sort of what it's like trying to hire someone. So you've got one of the wedges is about finance, one of the wedges about working with student athletes, one is about PR and media rights and so on. And, we're looking for people that either have or have the capability to develop as many of those as possible. And I'm pretty open to where they will have learned them.
Well, you're jumping ahead some questions that I sent along, which is what type of administrative background best fits New Hampshire's needs at this moment?
Yeah, and again, I don't really think of it that way. I think about what experiences have people had, what's their skill set, what can they do, what have they done, and what do you see the potential to doing. We hire in any given year one or two deans, one or two senior leaders. I just completed a hire of a senior marketing person for the university. Nobody comes with a complete package. God knows presidents don't. Me included. If you've got sort of 75% of it and you're willing to learn, you probably got a pretty good shot. And that's kind of how I think about this job as well. Now, that goes back to my point about learning, though. What you can't have is someone who thinks that they know everything already or that there's nothing more to learn, because when you stop learning, you start dying, at least professionally.
Absolutely. A couple of last questions about candidate profile. Is it valuable that this hire has potentially a background as maybe a student athlete themselves or even as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I would see that would help. Um, it's an unusual environment. If you haven't been in it at all, I think it would be probably difficult to know what's going on. Having said that, I'd be willing to bet that there are successful athletic directors who don't have that background. So yes, it would certainly be helpful, but I try not to think of anything as non-negotiable. When we develop these job descriptions, the dynamic is I'm always trying to make them shorter. What are the big picture? What are the things that we really need? Not some 25, item long list about must-haves. That's just not how I think about hiring. And, that's just how I think about it. I could be wrong in some areas, but I try to be open. How much does it, you can review a resume in 5 minutes. I'd rather be open and review the resume and say, okay, it didn't work, than say we're not ever going to look at it. Because every once in a while, you're going to find somebody who's really non-traditional who can be successful.
Absolutely, a diamond in the rough there. This is a question I did not ask you, so I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. But what is unique about the type of student and student athlete that attends New Hampshire? What is unique about New England, the Northeast? Give us a little insight into the kind of culture in the community at UNH.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think the first thing I'd say is that, UNH is in Durham, New Hampshire, which is a college town. And as you pointed out before we went on the air, I lived in another college town before this in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And what you may or may not have caught in my resume is that I also was at Penn State. So I lived in State College. So I've lived in 3 different college towns. And what I always tell people is that they're more similar than they are different. You've got all kinds of interesting people around with all kinds of education. And, it's usually a pretty international place. And we have people from around the world working at the university. We have people from around the world just on our soccer team and our hockey team, for that matter. So, and usually, and this is certainly the case in Durham, it's a beautiful place because people have really thought hard about the design of the university campus, but also the surrounding area. In New Hampshire, and where Durham is, we're part of what's called the Seacoast area of New Hampshire. So I think it's 7 rivers that are within the area, 2 bays, and we're only 25 minutes maybe from the ocean. So people think about New Hampshire and they think about the lakes or they think about the mountains, and they're really spectacular. And they're a little bit farther away, but all that beautiful water is just right around us. And I think that really influences us. And beyond that, it's an academic community, and it's a community that really cares about sports and cares about the university, and has a lot of Wildcat pride.
Well, what metrics will you be using to evaluate the effectiveness of this hire over the first 1 to 2 years?
Well, first will be, do they really understand and buy into what we're trying to do as a university as a whole? When you hire an athletic director, it's not just someone who only thinks about athletics. We have what's called the President's Leadership Council, and the athletic director sits on that council. Marty has been great counsel to us on areas beyond athletics, and I would expect the new athletic director to be that as well. You really want in any organization a lot of diversity of thought at the top, and athletic directors is a great way because they've had usually pretty different careers than the people who have grown up in academics. So you look for someone who's going to be able to help the university with thinking through really hard problems. And there's nothing but hard decisions that come to the senior level of any organization. All the easy ones are taken care of someplace else. So we want that. In the short term, I really want someone who has a plan. What are we going to do to increase our success on the field? What are we going to do to ensure the academic success of the student athletes? What are we going to do about raising more money so that we can have better facilities and scholarships and so on? So those are the kinds of things that I would look at.
Well, last question for you, President Dean. You touched on it before, how unique the Durham community is, but very bluntly, why should candidates consider, uprooting their lives, their families, and making New Hampshire their home?
It's one of the best jobs in the world. You should ask Marty. We just had a going away party for him, although we still got a little bit of time left. And he'll tell you that it's one of the best jobs in the world. The level of support, the beauty of the environment, the academic community, the diversity of sports that we have. It's really a great place to be. I came here almost 4 years ago, actually not here because I'm in a hotel in Philadelphia today, as you might guess, but came to New Hampshire about 4 years ago, and I've never regretted the decision. It's really a great place.
Well, great leadership starts at the top, so good culture starts at the top. So President Dean, thank you so much for joining us and for giving us some insight into this very important hire for New Hampshire for the Wildcats 4-year staff. We so appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Steph. It's been a pleasure to be with you.